Hi, Dennis Meyer here, coming to you from northern Minnesota. I want to show you my banding station here. Then in 2009, in 3 months, March to May, I banded over 10,000 birds at my feeders here by myself, and I had between 4,000 and 5,000 retraps. And the only reason I didn't get any more was the banding lab stopped sending me some bands. Now I'll be taking videos of all my traps set up to show you how I use my traps so that maybe in the future you can use some of these tricks and tips to help you band more birds at your station. Thank you. Dennis the Birdman here. This is how I start each trapping day. I load my traps onto a two-wheeler. On the bottom I have a mason tunnel trap, and then I have trays with my single cell potters. Each potter is 6 by 6 by 11, and each tray holds 4 potters. And I'll show you how I use them. Now this is the tray I use for the potters. It's 30 inches long, and each board is a 1 by 8. I put 1 by 2s on the outside here, and I put 1 by 3s on the inside. Then I also have 1 by 2s underneath here to steady the 2 boards, but also to line up the traps and hold them together. Now this is one of my towers set up. I have a square box as a base. It's about 45 inches high. And then I stack 4 trays, that's 16 traps, on top with a small plastic feeder on the top. I ran, in 2009, I ran 3 of these towers like this. And after you're done and you put the traps away, you can put a board feeder on top of your base unit there to keep the birds fed when you're not banding. Now this is my mason tunnel trap. I used 2 of those in 2009 when I banded all the birds. Put a small feeder on top. Have an access door underneath the feeder for taking out the birds. This works very well. Most people use them on the ground. I like to use them off the ground. Keeps the squirrels and chipmunks out of them. And you still get all the ground feeding birds in there. White-throated sparrows, juncos, Lincoln sparrows. They even go into these units. Again, it's on a base, 45 inches off the ground. This is my setup for my older potter traps that I bought in 1972. They were made by Walter Bigger out of Pennsylvania. I still have them and they still work great. What I've got is an old wire spindle on the ground. It's about 2 feet off the ground. And then I have a light wooden pallet on top of that. And I like to use these carpet remnants. I use them on the ground for all my traps. When you're done, you can just roll them up and you have no seed on the ground. The seed stays dry. So what I do is I cover this with a tarp when it's not in use. But this works well. Again, all your ground feeding birds will come in here. I catch a lot of juncos, fox sparrows, white-throated sparrows, purple finches in these traps here. This here is 2 potter cell units I made. 1 inch by 1 inch with vinyl coated wire. There's 8 cells on each side. Now again, I lay a carpet remnant on the handy panel here, 2 by 4. Put the seed down, put the traps down. Works very well with purple finches, juncos, white-throated sparrows, red poles. So that's 16 cells on this one shelf. Again, it's about 2 feet off the ground. And in case you're wondering, of the 10,000 birds, it was made up of 2,500 red poles, 4,900 pine siskins, 1,500 purple finches, 500 goldfinches, and various other species that came into my feeder that spring. This is my tube feeder trap. Has 2 entrances on each side with a perch in front. I have an access door on the top for taking out the feeder. I have an access door on the side for taking out the birds. Now I use 2 of these traps. These traps and the mason traps will catch up to 20-30 finches if you have some huge flocks in. I have a couple customers in Kansas who email me every time they catch a new species in their tunnel traps. They catch grosbeaks, finches, Baltimore orioles, downy woodpeckers, and they really enjoy trying to see how many species. I think one of them is up to like 14 species in their tube feeding trap. And you can either use thistle or you can use a sunflower feeder in there. I will have 2 different videos, one showing one full of redpolls and one that has a mixture of goldfinches, purple finches, and chickadees in it. It's really a colorful video. Was taken in the spring, so it's really a pretty picture with all the colors. Top door opening trap that I use for blue jays. It's only 5 inches tall. I attach a spring to the door, and you either have a dowel or a forked stick to hold the door open with this wire that extends down into the trap. Now in the fall of 2008 in September, I banded over 220 blue jays using just this little trap on the ground, again on a carpet remnant baited with yellow corn. Works very well. It also works for some of your ground birds too, depending on the bait you use. Now this is my hawk trap, my shrike trap, my owl trap. Again, it's a top opening trap with a bait cage, fork stick in a spring, and you put the fork stick in here. I even caught a large female barred owl. She weighed 1,175 grams. I used a little feral quail in there, and quail wasn't moving much. I think the owl could actually hear the bird's heart beating. But I caught her in here, just on the ground, right here next to this base that I have the trap on. This trap works so well. One spring I was working on the door, trying to fix it for a shin that was sitting out in the woods. I actually caught the sharp shin. She came in and went in the cage as I stood alongside it holding the door open working on it. It's a great little cage. I really like it. I catch about a dozen shins in a spring, 3 or 4 shrikes, and I've also caught 3 coopers with it. And I almost had a goss, but unfortunately the door was set off when the goss was sitting on it. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the tour of my banding station here in northern Minnesota. Unfortunately and sadly, I have to move, so I can no longer band at this location. But I thought I would share some of my experiences and some of my traps with you to maybe help you in your research and your banding. Now I make all these cages here, and I have a business, but I hope I've given you some ideas to help increase your trapping success so that you keep busy every banding day at your station. Have a good day and hope to hear from you in the future. Thank you.